Hi, Shur-ēē Tay-bur, founder of Energy Healing Arts. Welcome to our Sovereignty series, episode 5, video number 4. We're going to continue talking about how energy comes to you. We've established through the last 3 videos that energy can come to us from any number of ways. A primary way in which energy is with us has to do with our family of origin. At the point of conception, when you become a brand new embryo. Another way in which these energetic conditions can be with a person is because of their ancestral lineages. When our ancestral lineages are overshadowed by any kind of intention, this could be the intention of someone decades ago, centuries ago, or from the very beginning of a brand new lineage. This has been going on for all of time. It is not uncommon to have an intention overshadowing every single tiny little branch of one person's multifaceted ancestral lineage. Think about it like a tree. Tree has a main trunk, right? Big branches for an older tree. Branches also manifest other branches. The bigger those second branches are, the more branches that come off of those and off of those. And before you know it, perhaps your tree looks like a 500-year-old grandmother oak. If your lineage looks like that, you came into a very complicated lifetime. Lineages that are this old, lineages that have this many bigger, smaller, and more tiny branches likely have overshadowing. If we go back a few centuries, most people were marrying people from their own community. When they married people from their own community, it was possible to have a family member marrying a family member. There was a time when this is the way it was because everybody was connected. As time went on, more people and less close relationships were involved in marriage. Over time, they began to recognize that those who were closely related, who had children with certain deficits. And laws became passed, initially for the health of it. Then religion got involved and made it a nasty thing, made it a thing of perversion, made it a thing that was different than how it began. So then time went on and people began to be cursed if energetically it became clear that they had lineages of family members who married and had children. And this is how malicious energy works. So here we are in what we consider to be a real modern time. In the USA, our country is very young. It's about 250 years old. That is very, very young for a country. When the people who came here first, and by come, I mean come, not the indigenous who have been here for millennia, but when others came to this country, they came with their families, and they came with their clans, and they came with their communities. And in some cases, not all, but some, there was a reestablishing of a familial order. As that occurred, for some, there was what we refer to today as intermarrying, meaning that family members came to marry a bloodline relative. When this occurs, particularly after about 1200 AD, laws were passed again. And these laws were passed under religious orders. These laws were passed in a way that caused those who had originally married for the purpose of growing the family, of establishing cultural roots, so that the family traditions, the information that came to these families generation after generation after generation began to be with that family. And this, in some cases, was guided by the divine. And religious sects, sects, came in and explained that God did not approve of this. As this occurred, those who were obviously intermarried, those who had children in those marriages, began to be targeted, not just by the locals, but also by energy. These are the things no one saw. These are the things people did not understand. And as those people who were targeted, you could say labeled, but that's not really accurate. There was really etheric targeting by energetic conditions of many realms, because it was an opportunity. I mean, look, a religious sect came in and said, that's wrong, that's bad, shame, move them on. Look at what happens when you marry interracially, or excuse me, when you marry interfamilially. The interracial piece comes later. And people perverted this, human beings. Now, let's be real clear. I personally am not saying something is right or something is wrong. Personally, today, we don't need to marry interfamilially. We don't need to populate our country or our city or a new world. That time is over. And when I personally listen to God, I personally know this isn't what is in our best interest. Because when children come from a family that is closely related, married, has children, the children do have biological conditions that affect their life. God protected this during the periods of time when this is what he or they, however you prefer to refer to God as a pronoun, this is what they intended for a period of time in several different eras. And when evil or hate comes to meet a thing that a religious sect, a religious order, a house of worship, an institution that oversees a religious establishment of churches, when something with that power that's supposed to 100% represent the will of God to the people who are members, who follow them, who listen, who learn, who depend on the words they say to help them live a better life. And when these houses of worship, when these places that are supposed to provide as a shepherd, as a beacon of light, truth. When they fail, whether they have an agenda or they don't, when they fail, hate and evil come in fast. It rushes in like water. And when it does, it goes after every single person who's implicated by whatever came from the pulpit, whatever came from the order or the organizational institution that oversees a sect of churches or houses of worship or synagogues or whatever. And then those whose lives aren't in full alignment with what their church said, with what their families' houses of worship said was true, those people's lives began to become undone, some more than others. A person's divinely created personal lifetime incarnate plan protects that which was intended to be protected. For some, experiencing this was critically important so they could bring this information. So experientially, they could share with others what is happening. I personally have another story. Shocking. I came from a very, very, very old grandfather oak. No kidding. In fact, I've heard the word used. My lineage, when sometimes it's best not to get your lineage done. Be sure to be guided by the divine. Why? Because when you discover you are of pejoratized, prejudiced, minority DNA, you'll be targeted. You are likely being targeted before that. But when it becomes public, when it becomes public record that you have ancestral lines where close families married, had children, were tormented, were harmed, died because they had children, that's problematic. Because everyone from that family down is implicated. Down meaning every generation, except for those who came with certain protections so that it wouldn't occur. And nobody knows. Nobody knows. And then if in that lifetime, me happens to be harmed by any other, prejudiced, pejoratized by others, particularly those who the spirit realms have deemed authorities. Oh my, Katie, bar the door, because the onslaught of energies never stops, never stops. A completely full understanding of why can take decades. And for me, it has. So here's another little story. As a person who came into this lifetime, before I incarnated, my very old soul knew what they were doing. My very wise, very, very old spirit knew what they were doing. They've done this a few times. And they plopped me, this little human being who is a representation of them, in this lifetime, right in the middle of the most snarly, ugly, harmed, cheating, greedy, thieving, I could keep going, DNA mixed it in with some other beautiful DNA who have suffered from the beginning, combined it with some DNA that if one knew the other was coming together at any time in history would have ended it all, which caused curses and those kind of things to overshadow those lineages. God forbid that my Jewish ancestry and my German ancestry discovered each other at certain times in history. God forbid certain of my friends who judge me because they don't know I'm Jewish find out I am. That's my little secret. Sometimes observing who's going to judge you for what they do not know, when their perception is that they do, provides an interesting learning opportunity. So welcome to life. Who are you? Who are you? Were you a mother born in the 60s who dreamt of the most beautiful Cinderella lifetime? Who knew one day you would have it for a little while? Not knowing that the curses and the spellbound metaphysical conditions that followed you into this lifetime had a plan. This gets really, really interesting if you're me. I share this because I had a dream. It came with me. I'm tempted to explain my tears because it could appear that I am sad that that dream ended. That dream ended. I'm not. I was the happiest woman on earth. When people came to me and said, I'm so sorry, your marriage is over, I looked at them, I said, oh my, please let that out of your head. I'm the happiest woman on the planet that my marriage is over. I lost a good friend and I lost about 10,000 others. That's the grieving. I'm not grieving today, but I observed this occur over and over to other women who had similar circumstances within the church, within their chosen family, knowing that if they chose the freedom, knowing if in this lifetime they could finally choose, they would give up all their assets. They would give up their known chosen family for some half a century of it. They would walk away from security. They'd walk away from everything they knew. And for some, they would have nothing. For others, they would be judged. Some of these are deacons' wives. Some of these are the matriarchs and patriarchs of the largest churches in the land. Some of these came to understand this is what happens when we pejoritize, prejudice, judge, and misperceive who we are. Who are you? Why are you here? What do you need to walk away from so your life will unfold in the way it's supposed to? I've had to walk away from friends, from family. I've had to walk away at different periods of my life as I began to learn that I'm only as good, only as wise, only as capable as the bottom 20% of the people I spend my time with. There's a study that said you're only as good as these things I just listed. Your potential is limited by the 5 people you spend the most time with. My experience is it's the lower 20%. Now, I'm not pejoratizing, prejudicing. People make choices. And when I was in my 20s, I had to walk away from certain friends whom I loved, didn't want to walk away from. But in their 20s, they were being 20-something. I couldn't afford to be 20-something in my day-to-day behavior, in the way I showed up in the world, for a lot of reasons. Did it again in my 30s. Walked away from everything at 39. Walked into a different kind of situation that required I find my personal power so it didn't occur again. Required me to be able to honor those whom I make a decision to honor while standing up for my own rights, my own space, my own way of being me. As long as my way of being me, and this is for you, isn't inhibiting the freedoms, choice, sovereignty, and expression of a person's self, as long as what I'm doing doesn't inhibit that for another, then I need to be me. If the way I am inhibits another's sovereignty in any way, then I need to bring it down, understand what is it that I'm doing that's impending, that's causing a loss of sovereignty, a loss of personal power, a loss of being oneself in front of me. That's a big lesson that I have to try to implement day to day. Our families of origin can be challenging, very challenging. How do we be me? When they spent a couple of decades, not quite for me, shy of a couple of decades, deciding who I would be. And therein lies the problem. Born in 1961 to very young parents, very, very young parents, who were guided to be certain kinds of people, or who didn't get the right kind of guidance because they were raised by their older siblings, because they lived on farms and they had a huge family, busy family. Education didn't come first. Got to eat. Raised by people who perceived their own way of being was more important, more valid, more presently required. What does that mean? That the way they wanted to be as young adults and older adults as they got older, that what they wanted came first, that because they were the adult, no matter how old their children became, they came first, and that they were always right. This was a requirement of the curses, of the intentions that overshadowed both of them, their lineages. I didn't know that. And establishing my personal identity wasn't what they had in mind. Oops. Sorry we didn't do that interview before I decided to plop down as an embryo in 1961. Oops. I didn't conform well. I have an identity. And my identity is curious. My identity is compassionate. And for a very long time, very black and white. Very black and white. I received information very black and white from my father. So when I got it, I made deductions, some not in agreement with his black and white deductions. My mom, who was more fluid and more watery kind of a person, who I still haven't fully figured out. But what I do know is that at my age today, I am still considered less than. There's just no understanding of me, not by either parent. They don't understand. I don't understand what they don't understand yet, but they don't. And so, not inhibiting, not impugning the sovereignty of my parents while holding my own personhood, my own power, and the insistence without exception that I am respected is a very, very narrow balancing beam. So then I came with all this other stuff. I inherited it the moment I touched down as an embryo. And so did you. What does this mean for you? Probably everything you're experiencing is related. And probably, I should just take that word out. Everything you're experiencing as a person is related to your little touchdown, to your little inception, little only because you were just so tiny, more energy than being as a human. Let's back that up. More energetically present than flesh for a tiny period of time. And having no idea as that little person with a lot of energy at the level of your mind, which was your energy body immediately, what you are going to face in this lifetime. Don't you just love little guys, little girls, little boys, so innocent? And if you watch, you can see their personalities. If you listen, whether they're verbal yet, you can see their personalities. My three, so very different and so very much alike. Began to see the personality in the third baby. Now I saw them all, but in the third, I saw how early, because I was a little older, how early his personality showed up. Well, we called him Prince because he was. Today he's more like a king, has his own little prince, a little guy who's a lot like him, loud. And he's not verbal because he's so tiny. And because he's not verbal, he gets your attention. And because he's not verbal, they don't understand yet. But they will. Our babies come in with personality. They will tell you who they are if you just decide to be open to what that means. Watch, listen, either pray or intend. You will know who they are quickly, so you can help them become every bit of who they came to be. Be aware that when your little guy or girl comes in knowing who they are, energy will come to meet them. If you don't know who they are, more energy will come to meet them. And by who they are they passive? Are they quiet? Are they shy? Are they genius? Are they brilliant? Or are they more floaty, less intelligent at the level of interest of learning? Whatever. Intelligence, probably not the right word, but it is located in the intelligent centers within the energy field. And as we begin to understand what's important to each child, we begin to understand what their life can look like. And then we can do more praying or more intending that we know what they came here to do. Supporting experiences. Some experiences are horrifically painful. And if you come to know that those were experiences that you agreed to, protecting, supporting while they had the experiences, it'll make knowing how to do it just a little bit easier. I had one of those too. So frightening, so devastating, so hard not knowing. And as a very young mom, I had an idea of what safety meant. And that idea is more powerfully strong today. But I would be equipped differently today to raise him. I'm way too old for that. But my hope is that as you begin to understand you and how you came here, why you came here, what you came to learn and experience, and understand how you need to care for yourself, what you need to hold your sovereignty while you have experiential phases of life. As you learn these things, if you have children, young or older, you will begin to think about what that could have looked like, what it should or can for your children or your grandchildren. My hope is that you find your power as you learn why energy comes to you. We kept these last 2 segments for the end because we build in these series from what's easy to understand, sort of easy, right? What we can understand, what we need to know, what can we do about it? And now we're going to introduce some things that are much more complex and critically needed to know. We have an opportunity to learn some things we could not learn in any other lifetime. We would have been hung, beheaded. We would have ended our lives, some of us did, to try to bring this kind of information forward. Oh, I have a lot to say. And in this lifetime, you might be shunned. You might be received and thought of as odd or different. Or you might be perceived as someone no one wants to listen to. Welcome to my life. In my life, people either want to hear me or they do not want to hear me. There's not a lot of people in the middle. There might be 1 or 2, but that's it. And that's okay. I came here with a purpose. And if I am not doing my purpose, I'm not a happy camper. I learned that a long time ago. I'm not settled. There's not a settled part of my whole self if I am not in the midst of performing my purpose. This is true for all of us. It's how we are created. So in this video, what I want to do is introduce you to what makes up who you are. Once you begin to understand what makes up who you are, you will begin to want to understand it more. You can. Your whole self, your whole being is brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliance is different than intelligence. Some people think you can measure intelligence. I'm not so sure we can. There's too many components to intelligence to intelligently measure it well. Brilliance is when you are sharp. We all have capacity to be sharp. Every pencil sharpens differently. My sharp is very specific. I know when I'm sharp. I know when I'm not. And when I'm not okay. COVID took a real hard hit on my brilliance. Dulled it. One thing I don't like is a dull pencil or a flat pen. No, thank you. I want a fine point. I want a sharp tip. And COVID took that away. And it took a long time to begin to notice it was returning. It takes a lot. It didn't just come back. I have pursued the restoration of my brilliance like I would the rescuing of my child. For me, a dulled brilliance means nothing for my purpose. And what I mean by that is my purpose can't be performed. I can't stand out if I'm not sharp. This is a tough field for so many reasons. Forget what I have to overcome in the etheric and spirit realms to do this well, to be sharp, to not be overcome because I'm talking about something nothing in the spirit world wants me to talk about. Now, that's the part that you can't see. That's the part no one knows about. That's the part practitioners don't talk about because it's too much misunderstood. That causes us to have a facade. That causes us to pretend that energetically we aren't affected like you are. That's not fair. That's not okay. I didn't come into this lifetime being able to be sovereign without working like a crazy person. I don't know why I say that. I just imagine someone who works. My grandmother would have called it a one-armed paper hanger who never stops. That's what it looks like as a practitioner whose work works. There are practitioners whose work works and practitioners whose work kind of works. And there's a lot that goes into that. Why does my work work every time? Because I don't do it. I'm not the one who performs the work. The divine is. And if the divine says this is going to be resolved, healed, cleared, manifest, it will. Now, we have a different timing, perhaps, or not an awareness of the divine timing that we established personally before we incarnated. This is complex. It is not so simple and so mystical or so happenstance or coincidental. Well, it's not coincidental, that's for sure. So, what do we do first? First, you have to begin to accept the only way anything I'm going to say from here forward is going to make sense, is going to begin to help you have the most brilliant, most powerful, most empowered personal empowerment is if you can agree that you have a divinely created personal lifetime incarnate plan. Yeah, like how do we know? As you let it sit on the table with you. So if you can't incorporate this yet, if you can't integrate it, that means that your brain is saying there are parts of you who are still at the decision-making table. Okay, look, I have a decision-making table, and sometimes things sit there while I evaluate everything that needs to be evaluated before I can feel comfortable incorporating it as truth. Because once we do, it begins to flavor everything. It begins to create a known context for understanding other things. This particular context for understanding other things will help you with everything in your life. Everything. So let's at least set it on the table of possibilities. For those of you who have a strong knowing, who have I get it, I don't understand it, but I get it, way of holding this, then intend that you understand what you need to understand about having one. What does it mean that every person, every incarnate, every animate, and every inanimate thing came with a plan? It means we live in a world that is ordered, that works very intricately together to create a particular fabric. When we get it right, incredible, beautiful eras of time occur. When we don't, hate and E-level kinds of energetic conditions surge, mount, and affect an era. We've lived through a very big era, probably 2 generations, maybe just a little more than 2, the end of one and 2 more. How many generations were born in this 105-year period? A lot. A lot. But if we look at it through the perspective or the view of how many lifetimes one might have during a period, you could have experienced 3 lifetimes in this 105-year period, or 2, or 1. We know about 1. And if you have lived more than 1 in this very, very energetically congested era, then in your last lifetime, you may have encountered another pandemic. If you encountered that pandemic and you left, you moved into the heavenly realms. You ended in that lifetime and moved into the heavenly realms. It is possible you experienced that pandemic. There are a lot of possibilities. And if you experienced the pandemic of 1918, and you had already planned your divine lifetime, incarnate plan for this lifetime, prior to that one, a lot of energy knew about it. A lot of H level and E level energy already knew you did, because it's present in your energy body at a vibrational level that you and I may not be able to understand. Energetic conditions that have a soul, energetic entities that have a soul, a divinely created soul by the Creator. That makes them a capital E entity. If a capital E entity knows you between lifetimes, doesn't like you, doesn't like the work you do in either space, in between incarnation and incarnation, they could attract you. They could have followed you. It's not all secretive because the divine knows, and you do too, in between lifetimes. If you had a big purpose in the prior lifetime that was either experienced or influenced by that pandemic, you have a capital E entity very interested in what you're about to do in this lifetime. And that means you have a lot of other kinds of energetic conditions trying to stop you from performing the work you came to do. 2 pandemics in 105 years? 2 pandemics whose entities are the first phase of the pandemic that are exactly the same? What happened? The entities, capital E, that means created by the creator and ensouled by the creator, were part of the 1918 pandemic. That pandemic wasn't the same pandemic. That pandemic was different. The concept of the pandemic, similar, but not the same. Those entities, capital E, perform most of the pandemic conditions, most. Those entities have the capacity of creating E-level, hate and the other kinds of illnesses by intention. That's all. An idea, an ideation, which started with an inspiration, which began a pandemic of unwell flu. What's an unwell flu? An unwell flu is the kind of flu that came in that never, ever came before. An unwell flu, the un-piece of the word un and unwell, is an indication of another kind of entity. Un, UN, are 2 letters that were used over and over and over again as an associative trigger to bring in energetic fields of intention. The U and the N. The W, E, L, L were also associated with trigger intentions. Those trigger intentions called in everything that was associated with the W, everything associated with the E, everything associated with both L's. Both L's are double, which meant double the L impact. Whatever the associative energetic intention with the L was, it was doubled. Each letter established a layer of unwell, energetic, consequential outcomes. You might need to listen to this a couple of times because it's kind of surrealish. It's kind of hard to follow because it's not something we normally talk about. Well information, as in energetic conditions. We'll call it information because we're going to move away from some of these words while we explain this, because they are also associated with fields of intention today. So unwell information is still associated in this era of a pandemic, meaning that it never went away, meaning that the kinds of layered information that came to people in the 1918 pandemic were fields of intention. Anything can be inside of a hologram, which is a field, that contains an ideation, which is the second step after an inspiration, which is an idea that inspires one to create a plan. An intention is formed first by an inspiration. And when we have an inspiration, we think about it a lot. We have an inspiration that's worthwhile, we ideate. When we ideate, we're creating a plan. We're imagining, envisioning the various phases and implementations of that plan. At the point where that plan is successful, one can go, there it is. Now I intend it. But that is a fluid process. It can happen very fast or it can happen over time. Human beings use this process, known or unknown. That's the process by which we create an intention. These capital E entities create intention similarly, maliciously, with the intent to end. So that's always the end game, to end a thing, a life, a process, a phase, anything. That is how these entities are created, to end. If you incarnated in that lifetime and you incurred unwell information in the way I just explained it, and your life ended with unwell information still in your energy body, which means it could be in your physical body as well, because remember, our energy body runs through us all over, in all directions. We have transitions, fields, planes, spaces, and hidden places throughout our whole self. When those layers of unwell energy enter to a person in certain places of their energy bodies, they could die. They could cease to thrive. If this occurred, this is recorded in your energy body. How we pass in the lifetimes we have lived is held within your etheric template. And you'll recall, if you've watched other videos or read some of the things we've written, your etheric template rests, let's see if you can see that space. I mean, really, you see the shadow of my finger. I'm not touching my face, but it is just closer than that. It hovers right over the skin. Your whole body is surrounded by this genius blueprint of your life. This genius blueprint is a template for your perfection. It's a template for your perfect life. This one. It's a template that holds the genius, the intelligence, and the brilliance you have accumulated throughout every single lifetime. That's a lot of information. That's a lot to discover that you have access to. How about that? What are we missing? What are we not learning about our genius, our brilliance, and our intelligence? Here's the unfortunate piece again. These etheric and other realm capital E entities, meaning the creator ensouled them at creation. They know. They can read our etheric template. What the what? Yeah, they read our etheric template. They know what we don't. They have a great advantage over you and me until we know. Who are you? You need to know. Why are you here? You need to know. What magnificent, incredible, empowered capacities did you come with in this lifetime to fulfill a purpose so incredible that you agreed to either observe or experience in some way, perhaps only influence by a pandemic that occurred 105 years ago. So profoundly important that you incarnated then and now. For those of you who have a sense that you did not, ask the divine and understand that at the exact right time, you'll understand the truth about it, the yes or the no, or how you were influenced, how it influenced you then has a lot of impact on this lifetime. A lot. How you intended to experience that lifetime, perhaps the lifetime leading up to that, the lifetime of it. That lifetime was influenced by several generations into the next generations. How closely related to that pandemic are you to the generation that experienced it or influenced you because they were influenced by it? That affects you. Grandfather Oak, how many people in your grandfather Oak lineage were impacted by both? That affects you. It's not cruel. The energies are cruel, don't get me wrong. The way this is occurring to one or more lifetimes, back to back, simultaneously, it's not cruel. We are here to resolve a thing, a big thing. We're here to educate, be influenced, and experience certain aspects of this condition so that we can resolve it for the future. What's your role? It would be so easy to say, oh, she is crazy. No wonder people either like her or don't. Ask the divine. Ask the divine so you understand for you personally how your life is supposed to look in this lifetime. If you are experiencing energetic congestion, activity, sleepless nights, weight gain when you're not eating enough to do anything but lose weight, and how is it that the pandemic, infectious and bacterial conditions that existed in 1918 and the energetic conditions and COVID as an energetic condition and a viral, bacterial, and organ field condition, how is it that they affect you today in this moment? I'm going to end this particular video with a few things to help you consider how it may be affecting you, how all of this might be affecting you. First, if you have energetic COVID, and according to the divine, we all do, how you have energetic COVID could cause you to be attracting, to magnetizing, to resonating with other COVIDic entities of capital E, lower e, little I, N hyphen T, I-T-Y, big I, N hyphen T-I-T-Y, little I, N T hyphen I-T-Y, or capital I-N-T hyphen I-T-Y. Each of those is a describing word for the kind of entity that is associated with COVID. We encounter energetic COVID of any kind, any one of those or all of them, before we get infectious COVID, which could be viral, bacterial, or organ field COVID. The viral, bacterial, organ field variations of infectious COVID land in our energy body in the most vulnerable areas first, with a target toward our planes, which are our emotion, mental, mind, physical, spirit planes, which are 360 degrees right here. Now we have some others throughout this big body, this big whole self. But the primary areas that these various kinds of entities attack is right in front of your face, all around your head, your temporal lobes, to the ocular areas that are right behind your eyeballs, and the other very crucial areas of your brain. That's the first target. The second target is around your heart space. Same kind of parallel circle that goes around your heart space, from your breasts to the top of your stomach organ, your liver, your spleen, your gallbladder, all the way around your ribs, all the way around the back to your spine. The spine is a hot spot. They want access to your neurological system. The third area of targeting is the belly area, the big expanded area of your belly, from the stomach organ down to the bottom of your pelvic floor, to the bottom of your genitals. This is another area of high targeting. Each of these three areas, your gut, your heart, your brain, carry similar cells. If they attack the cells of your brain, they also have access to the cells in your heart and in your gut. If your gut is attacked and it starts to get sluggish, if it affects your stomach, your food may not process and digest. If it affects your liver, the kinds of enzymes and whatever liver information is, because I'm not a doctor, the kind of liver information that passes through that organ, which is supposed to clear things out of your food, out of our blood, gets stuck in the liver, and your liver tests start coming up differently than they would had that not occurred. The spleen is affected. The gallbladder is affected. All of the areas where we process what comes in that's supposed to clear it isn't. If you are affected below the stomach area, from the stomach area below, downward. When that gets sluggish, when that's not working right, the cells within your heart are affected and your heart begins to not work properly. People who have encountered entity COVID end up with, many of them, let's just say that, many end up with heart abnormalities, functions of the heart that we consider to be abnormal begin to manifest. When this occurs, the heart and the brain can be affected, or the brain comes next and then the heart. It just depends on how you're being targeted. Depends on the construct of the energetic information that they bring into your energy body and how it is intended to affect you. These are the ways COVID, as an entity condition, intend to end things in your life. This is similar to the ways the capital E entities brought in fields of information, which are holographic fields filled with intention and that which was required to fulfill that intention, and layered it in the living. 105 years ago throughout the pandemic. Again, if you were affected in that lifetime, it's recorded in your template, your etheric template, your genius. Everything about you is in your etheric template. It's an etheric body made geniusly. If that's recorded in your etheric template, it's also reflected in your 8th and 9th chakras, which are above our head. When it's affecting our body, when the information in our etheric template is known by any kind of entity who intends to harm, they begin to erect constructs of other kinds of energetic conditions inside of your energy body with the intent of hovering conditions, constructs, complex energetic conditions hovering over the vital life force organs of your body. When this hovers over your body knows. Your body begins to suffer. You are tired, lethargic, cannot fulfill the kinds of energetic activities you can fulfill when it is not there. Your organs begin to work differently. Your sleep is not like it should be. Your capacity to function well isn't. Your knowing of what you need to do and the way you always did doesn't work the same anymore. It is mechanical. It feels separate. If you can function, it is as though it isn't a seamless process anymore. COVID's intention is to start to isolate our capacities to function seamlessly. Some can tell you they feel disjointed. They feel the processes. They feel the thinking processes. They feel the connection with the divine is different. They have to think differently to affect that which came so naturally before. When these energetic conditions start layering, they resonate. They call other energetic conditions in, all kinds. The kind that will glom, Glom, onto those fields of intention that are layering at whatever accelerated or not accelerated phase or process. They will layer and glom onto those other constructs. And this just keeps happening. If you're not clearing, if you're not using a sovereignty protocol that works, this keeps getting worse. You will find yourself inclined to do things you didn't do before. Maybe as benign feeling, but it isn't benign, as remaining in bed after the time you would have gotten up. When we lay in bed past the time we would have traditionally chosen to get up, etheric energetic information is causing you to do this. As etheric information comes in, it attaches to these areas of resonance throughout your field. They are really targeting those 3 primary areas, because if they can fog you out, if they can dull you up or down, you cannot function. Think of the myriad outcomes. Your work performance, your capacity to close those cases, your capacity to be so sharp and good at what you once were. Your performance falls. This will eventually create a problem for you at work. One of 2 things are going to happen. You're going to quit, because you don't enjoy it anymore, because it feels so energetically overwhelming that you cannot do it. But what you will learn is that the next thing you try to do is the same thing. I went through this when I had long COVID. I decided if I couldn't enjoy my work, I was going to go golf, and learned that if I tried to golf, I couldn't golf either. So, okay, I'll play tennis. Guess what? That was ended really fast. They grabbed a hold of both of my shoulders and elbows in ways that I cannot swing a racket, much less hold a plate some days. That's ending. But what happens is they attach deeply. So let's just say this glomming on and this thing is happening. And this is what happens when you get COVID. When you get COVID as an energetic condition, and then the viral or the bacterial or both, an organ field COVID comes in. When this occurs, your energy field is growing full of energy that uses your vital life force energy to survive, to fulfill their intention, which is to end with one ultimate ending intended. But they end things along the way, so you begin to not care about anything. People who know me know I love beauty. I love beauty. I don't care what it is. I love beauty. COVID took over so rapidly when I got it that I didn't care anymore. I just didn't care. Let my BMW go back. I let my appearance change. I changed clothing kinds. The things that I worked so hard to create my persona that made me feel like who I am, I didn't care about anymore. I didn't even care that I didn't care. Like I didn't feel like the wrong thing. Isolation, right? I'm an extrovert, in case that's not obvious. I am an extrovert. I love being around people. I don't really care. Like in these places where this energy gloms on, because there comes a point when it starts to come in like a perfect storm, and that's what it's called. And you can feel it when it's happening. That's the period of time you need a practitioner fast. Get it to stop. Resolve what's causing a perfect storm so they don't keep coming. No one has understood this. I discovered this process for myself because I couldn't find a practitioner who understood it. And because of the nature of the kind of entities that are involved, only those who work with the divine, who is the creator, who is pure source light, who is source, can end it. Only. No other can resolve an ensouled being. And if you get a capital IN hyphen TITY, you end up with a complex thought form that contains the ensouled energy of human beings. No other can resolve that, no matter what you think about the various practices that believe that they are resolving it. They cannot. That's not egotistical. I am a trained, highly trained shamanic practitioner. I understand it with the depth that's required to use shamanic traditions to resolve a thing, even these things. But only those who know that Great Spirit, only those who permit Great Spirit, who is the divine, who is the creator, who is source, who is the divine realm, who is Jesus, who is the Holy Spirit, who is the Holy Trinity, can resolve and ensoul anything. Anything can hold the souls and essences of power of a human being, if that which intended it to hold it has the created capacity to intend at that level. And if it is attempted to be resolved by any other, it will fail, Oh, no problem, right? So you're out $250 or $300, right? No. The requirements inside of these conditions require that they are resolved exactly according to the conditions. And you're like, well, how can they do that, right? I thought that the divine can do anything. The divine can. And the divine follows these requirements. The divine, the creator, follows the requirements that were created by these various kinds of energetic conditions, some created by the creator, some created by some of these kinds of entities. And the divine follows the requirements, because the consequential outcome that can happen like this, like an H-bomb in your energy body, will kill you if it goes that way. The consequential long-term impact of having things resolved by a non-divine practicing practitioner, by one who does not practice knowingly with the divine, because there's too many other entities that say they are. They spell it differently and some spell it the same. If you practice with a power that calls itself the divine, ask what God says. Literally, this sounds a little silly, but there was a period of time when I would hear, oh yeah, I'm Archangel Michael. God, Archangel Michael? No, and it moves on. I am the divine. Really? Jehovah Shammah. Is this the divine? Nope, gone. This is what happens during this period of time. These entities assume a resonant vibration that vibrates with the names of God. There are some they do not know, but most they do. And there are some who have assumed a vibrational capacity to show up the moment one name of the divine is thought or said. When this occurs, you could end up with a perfect storm, because there could be hundreds of thousands, or millions of resonant entities that vibrate to you instantly when a particular word is used. Things that begin with the letters UN can also happen. Things that include WEL can also come in. Ask the divine to hold all of that so you do not have resonant harm as you move through the days where this is still here. If you're watching this video, your whole life is being held, and the life of everything and every possession of every kind is being held while you watch this. That's the divine's intention. The divine has intended that those who watch these videos begin healing. That is the divine's intention, not mine. Every word I speak is coming through me from the divine, who is pure source light, so that you can heal. This is real. And the thing I'm going to leave you with is the knowing, the understanding that if you have remnant COVID, energetic COVID, if you have residue energetic COVID, if you have remnant or resonant or residue or the tiniest little particles of dead COVID in your flesh or anywhere, it is resonant. It is attracting additional information that resonates with COVID as an entity disorder, as a viral, bacterial, and organ field disease. COVID as a variety, COVID as a viral, bacterial, and organ field disease evolves. Every time our fields cross another, two kinds of COVID come together and create another hybrid form, and then the hybrids get crossed and they become hybrid. We have a significant energetic disorder in our collective. It's everywhere, everywhere. How do we end it? I'm going to tell you how you can be part of ending it so that your life will thrive. I'm going to do this in video 5. See you there. Thank you for watching.